town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker. Hey everyone, and welcome to Thursday night. I am your host, the Ghost Biker, and I am here at the historic and very haunted historic Scott County Jail. I'm actually here in the visitation room. Tonight we have a special tour here, a special flashlight tour. So the scenery is just a little bit different, but I kind of like it. It's kind of like being here in my own little sound studio. So again, thank you all so much for joining me here tonight. We are here in the middle of June. We're trucking away with investigations, with tours, with a lot of really cool things going on here at the jail and also at Historic Rugby After Dark. So I just want to take a few minutes and say hello to everyone here in the chat room. Again, thank you so much for joining me. We've got an absolute great show that I can't wait to introduce you to tonight's guest. We were having some really cool conversation before the show and some really cool topics that we're going to talk about tonight. So, but first, I do want to cover a little bit of news and stuff going on here at the jail and at Rugby. And again, like I said, just say hello to some of you folks who are on here tonight. Hello, Miss Janet from out in Arizona. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Miss Susan Purcell, she joined us just this past week on one of our historic Rugby After Dark lantern tours. Had such a great time. Thank you for joining us there. Miss Nancy Weems from down in Florida, and Miss Sonia Thompson from down in Georgia. So we've got folks watching from all over tonight. Again, thank you all so much. It's been a really busy day here at the historic Scott County Jail. We did a special event today. We actually closed to the public around noon. And we ended up partnering with the Tennessee State Museum out of Nashville, Tennessee, and did the teacher partnership workshop, which if you're a teacher, a lot of the time you've got to do in-service training. And so today, the Tennessee State Museum came up. They did a presentation with lots of resources and lots of different free materials that teachers can use. I'm actually just going to pull up right here and cycle through just a few of the pictures, but they came in, they talked to teachers. We had teachers from Anderson County, Morgan County, Loudoun County, all the different surrounding areas. It was a really cool day, really great learning experience, and we were very honored to be able to partner with the Tennessee State Museum and be able to actually end up doing a tour with these teachers of the historic Scott County Jail. So they came in, they learned about some different tools and resources that they offer. The Tennessee State Museum out of Nashville, they're really doing this incentive to try to reach rural communities. And you don't get much more rural than here in Huntsville and down in Morgan County and those areas. So we're really thankful that we were able to be a part of this and to be able to share the history from here at the historic Scott County Jail with these teachers from our community, as well as the surrounding communities here in the area. So it was such a success that we're going to be able to do this again here in the next little bit. So if you are a teacher, definitely reach out to us. We're trying to pick some of the best months, and they're working for they're working for the future of picking dates and such that's going to work better for everybody, because we know this is the summer, and being the summer, it's sometimes kind of hard to pull yourself away to come in and do these in-service trainings. So again, such an honor to be able to partner with the Tennessee State Museum. So just be on the lookout for that, for some really cool things and some other partnerships that we're going to be doing with them. Also, we've got several bookings still available here at the historic Scott County Jail for flashlight tours, escape rooms, and also paranormal investigations. we've had a whirlwind of investigations the last little bit. In like the last 15 days, we've had 10 paranormal investigations, and we're pretty well booked up through the remainder of June, July, and August on the weekends. We do have a random Saturday here and there, and we've got a couple Fridays and Sundays that are open through August. We do have Thursdays and a couple days here and there. So definitely check the schedule, but those days are booking up quick. Not really sure what's going on, but we've had an influx of investigations and the activity has been absolutely insane. We did release just some footage that one of our last teams had captured from here. And it was really wild because I was working the night that the team was here, and they captured this. They were sitting in one of the rooms on the second floor in the trustee's cell. And all of a sudden, as they're sitting there, they've got police body cam sitting there in the room, as well as their audio recorders. And you actually hear running from out in the hall that charges into the room where they're standing. And it was really quite startling to the team that was here. So they were very fortunate enough to catch that on camera. And the audio is just really wild. So we did just release that. We have also had some other video and footage that teams have been sending us. So if you have investigated the jail, or if you've investigated over at Rugby, or even done one of our tours with us, we like to highlight those on the website. So definitely send those in, and we'd love to check it out and see what you captured. Speaking of recent captures, we've not released it just yet, but we did get a very, very cool photo from our last historic Rugby lantern tour that my business partner and I spent last night trying to debunk and trying to see if we could recreate it. We will be releasing that on the historic Rugby After Dark Facebook page, and also on the tours. We're going to be highlighting that on the upcoming lantern tours. So if you do join us for one of those, please be sure to send those in whenever you're here in the area. So again, we do have historic Rugby lantern tours coming up, as well as investigations over there. We've got some true overnight investigation dates still up on the calendar. We've also got some of our 6.5-hour investigation dates there at Rugby, as well as our lantern tours. We offer 2 lantern tours. One of them is of the downtown village. The other is of the north end, which does include the cemetery. We're still getting that tour together. It's a little more intensive on walking, so we're still working on that one. But we have those dates up on the Rugby After Dark page, and I'm just going to quickly pull that page up just so you can see it. If you haven't followed the historic Rugby After Dark page, please go do that, where you can see different events and such that Rugby day tours, as well as our Rugby After Dark tours have those listed on there. And then also where you can go and book. And so if you go to historyhighwayshaunts.com and click on the Rugby tab, you can go on there and explore the page, find the tours, find the investigations, and then go on and book. So we did sell out a couple tours just today in the upcoming weeks, but we do have a few other spots available on those tours if you're going to be in the area and you're looking for something really cool to do with your family or your friends. And so Rugby is only 21 miles here from the jail. So if you're looking for something within the area, you can make a full weekend of it. So I'm going to go ahead here in a few minutes and get introduced tonight's guests. But again, just want to say hi to Kimberly Horn. Thank you so much from out in South Dakota for tuning in. And yes, I am feeling much better, Nancy. I was under the weather last week. And so, it was kind of a challenging show, but we had a wonderful guest, Mr. Robin Terry. And so if you didn't catch that interview, please go back and check that out. But I'm going to go ahead here, and I want to get to tonight's guest because this is going to be such a fun and interesting show. I ended up meeting several members of the Freqs Geeks Paranormal podcast or paranormal radio show when I was doing Enigma Cons there in St. Albans. And I got to tell you, we had so much fun being table mates with these ladies. It was just an absolute blast. And so tonight we have three of the hosts from the Freqs and Geeks Paranormal Radio Show, April, Chris, and Heather. And Freqs and Geeks is the go-to podcast for all things weird, supernatural, and paranormal. They talk about a variety of topics from the Ukrainian folklore and creatures to rootwork, hoodoo, and conjure to haunted media and palmistry. Plus, they dive into interesting cases like the Lizzy Borden axe murders, Typhoid Mary, the Greenbrier Ghost, and even the mysterious Mothman. Whether you're into astrology, gaming, cryptids, ghostly automobiles, or just want to hear about your favorite unique Oreo flavors, Freqs and Geeks Paranormal Radio Show has something for everyone. And that is absolutely true. I mean, if you guys have not heard this podcast yet, you definitely need to go and check it out. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on my guests, Miss April and Chris. Hey, guys.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Great. Heather sends her apologies. Unfortunately, she had kind of a family emergency come up, so it'll just be us tonight, but I promise you won't regret it. So
I have no doubt about that. So, so we had the opportunity to meet, and they're at St. Albans, and I got to tell you, I really enjoyed. I wish we could have had more time to really sit and talk, because I just got to say, I really enjoyed your chemistry and just really enjoyed your energy that you ladies had.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we try and keep it fun. We try and keep it light. I think that very first night we had kind of the like vendor private investigation, and we ran across you and your compatriot there that you had there with you, and we were like, oh my God, we were mortified because we had just walked straight into your investigation without a care in the world. And we were like, oh Lord, they hate us. They hate us so much right now. So we're just in the other room trying to be quiet as little church mice. But yes, it was a great time. We had a great time together. And
St. Albans is huge. How did you just run into him?
Well,
right?
It was the suicide bathroom.
Okay.
There's
Yeah.
hot spots.
Yeah,
There's
there
hot
is.
spots.
Mhm.
So you guys had a great setup, and we just
Thank
tromped
you.
right through it like no care.
Well,
We
in our
do
defense,
damned.
we were sitting there pretty quiet, and we were kind of tucked back in the corner. And you know how that is. It's kind of crazy, because that's probably the first time that at St. Albans I've actually ran into somebody in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's hot spots. You've got the basement, the boiler room, you've got Jacob's room, you've got, the suicide bathroom and that whole hot spot up there, which I'm not even sure what the story is, honestly.
Isn't that the bathroom you fell asleep in?
So the suicide bathroom, I did fall asleep one time. They were doing tours, and we were some of the special guests there, and Carrie, who's one of the other hosts, and I were there, and they put us up in the suicide bathroom, and they had tours running like every 30 minutes, but it also meant that after every single tour that came through, they had like a 10 or 15-minute break. So it meant that we were actually up there for 20-30 minutes by ourselves for people to walk all the way up to the suicide bathrooms from that main area, starting area. And so we're sitting there, and it's 1:30 in the morning, and
I
we're
need a
just
nap.
both of us just kind of conked out on the floor in front of the bathroom. And I was like, you know what? This is how I know I'm a real ghost hunter, because I can sleep pretty much anywhere.
That's right. That's right. No, that place is just phenomenal.
Oh, it really is special.
And yeah, and we ended up, Tiffany investigated there with me that night, and we ended up just having so much activity just staying there that we didn't really even hit half the places that we had intended to go. And I tell you what, part of the reason I never run into anybody there is because I usually end up going off and getting lost. And I'm just kind of wondering, I seem like I wander between alcoholics and uh, the segregation area down there.
Yeah.
It seems like I get down there and I can't find my way out.
It is very labyrinthian.
Yeah, it really
Yes.
is. And they have all those decorations up now, and that can kind of put you in a tailspin as well. There's like a huge maze in one of the sections now.
Yes.
It even threw me off a little bit, but there's something special about St. Albans. It's got that good homegrown Appalachian, like
Yes.
root to it, that earth, connection. And I really do believe that some people believe in vortexes and some people don't, but I really do believe that there's a vortex at St. Albans and it just generates nothing but activity. And there's been so many human lives that pass through that, whether it was as a result of the boys' school or was it was the sanatorium, or even afterward when they actually had offices and part of it as well. There's just so many human lives that have touched that place that it has become electrified. And it really does help that the New River runs, or is it New or Shenandoah? It runs right at the base of St. Albans. So
yeah, and just such a variety of activity. I mean, it's not just you go in thinking, oh, sanatorium, and just how, the type of activity you would get with that, but just with the boys' school and like you said, with the offices, it's just such a wide range. You just really don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that is fantastic about St. Albans. And St. Albans is actually where I did my first paranormal investigation, thanks to this lovely lady.
Cut your teeth there. Nice.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, it was a ride. We'll say that. But it's just the amount of history that is associated with that place. I mean, whether it's true crime, you want your true crime history that goes through it with what's the case? Now I'm drawing a blank. The lady that was there, her spirit is believed to be in the basement.
Oh, you're talking about Gina Renee Hall?
Yes. Whether it's that story or, even the founder of it or not the founder, but who turned it into a sanatorium from the boys' school.
Dr. King.
There's fantastic stories all around when it comes to St. Albans.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, one of the things that I noticed and that we talked about just before the show, I noticed an interesting and unique thing about your bios about you guys being vets or service members. And so first off, thank you for your service. We really appreciate and love having vets and servicemen and women here on the show, because we have quite a few over here in the chat room as well. But why don't we talk a little bit about your unique background with that, with your podcast, your paranormal team, and your mission, and some of the things you guys do with that.
Sure. So Freqs and Geeks is a podcast, right? That is what it is. It's a radio show, podcast, whatever you want to call it. I think we tried to church it up a little bit. That's why we called it radio show at first. And then we just kind of stuck and we were like, oh man, but it is a podcast. That is what it is. We actually have the podcast that is separate from our team. Our team is called Freqs Paranormal. And my friend Carrie and I founded that back in 2009. And it's been going ever since. Now, Freqs Paranormal is this nebulous, very modular entity. And that sounds confusing, but the reason that we have it that way is because 95% of our members of that actual team that goes out and does investigations, we're all veterans, and we're all spread all over the continental United States, at times all over the world. But we have these people that come from everywhere. And so what we do is we set up hunts, and then whoever ends up showing up, whoever ends up coming or being able to attends. We recognized really early on, I mean, I was a service member at the time when we started it. And we recognized early on that for people that have to move every 3 to 4 years, they go to a new place, and oftentimes the paranormal community in that place, they're going to want to know your reputation. They're not just going to let anybody come on private investigations with them, unless you get really lucky and you got a really good team or something like that. But they don't know you for all intents and purposes. And that's not to say that you're not worth anything as an investigator and that you don't want to get out there and hunt. So what we do is we set up these events, and most of the time we'll tell everybody, hey, listen, we're going to have this event. Anybody that shows up, come on and show up. And that way they get to have that time to conduct their own private investigations. And we're really cognizant of making sure that people are interactive. And even if they're, in Korea, stationed in Korea, they still have an active role in the group. They're still able to put their input in. They're still able to research for us or do something like that, and then they share their stories with us as well.
Wow.
Something we were talking about that I think is really interesting is that military installations are some of the most haunted places I have ever been. I have ever investigated. Specifically, the the family housing areas are always just honestly a hot mess of paranormal activity, and it delights my soul. Every base we've been to has been that way. Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the base housing I was in at Langley was very old. It's been around for a while.
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was. I think one of the most special places I've been, and unfortunately this time I wasn't a paranormal investigator, but I definitely had my own experiences. Was the old base housing, the barracks on Fort Myer, which
Oh,
is in DC. That's where Arlington National Cemetery is, right? So you have Arlington National Cemetery that is this huge space, and then attached to one end of it is Fort Myer. So when you're coming home from a night shift, pulling security, you get to see the mist rolling across the graves
oh,
in Arlington. And it is this
chilling.
incredible, otherworldly, spiritual experience. It changed my life in so many that whole tour changed my life in so many different ways. But yeah, so that's our mission, is to help veterans to get into the fold, to be more involved in the paranormal community, and to kind of have these pop-ups available for people that do want to hunt but don't necessarily have that community presence yet. So
That's wonderful. I mean, just absolutely, because people don't always realize it's really hard, to find a cohesive team. And when you find that team, especially when you're going into these areas that maybe have these sketchy backgrounds or these interesting and intense history and stories, it's always kind of hard. You want to surround yourself by people that you trust and that you enjoy spending time doing these investigations with. So I can only imagine, as much as you guys are transferred and move, how hard it would be to find that connection when you go to these places. So
yeah, it definitely
that's
is.
wonderful. Yeah.
One of the other things is that, like, a lot of times you'll find, within, military centric, communities, whether it's, work, your work center or wherever you're working, um, they will find most people aren't generally open to the idea of going on paranormal investigation. So the groups, the amount of people you have to choose from as far as finding that group can be a bit difficult, which makes it, you know, that much more special that this is something that can be, people can take part in.
Absolutely. That was actually going to be my next question. Do you find that within the military that there are a lot of people who are open to the paranormal?
It's a mixed bag, I think one of the things that we like to do in the military all the time is make fun of things that are scary. And that's part of the nature of being in the military, right? And sometimes it's really dark humor. So it can be hard to see if somebody is actually interested in the paranormal, or they just want to make jokes about ghosts and stuff like that, which is fine either way. Like, we don't care either way. I don't care if you do want to make fun of it the whole time. Come on, just try it. I've had a lot of those people come with us as well and leave being like, this is actually super cool. In fact, my sister, who you met, she was at Enigma Cons with us. So that was her and my niece's first ghost hunt ever. And they've made
Oh.
fun of me about ghost
Why do you
hunting
keep taking people to
for
St. Albans? Stop that.
decades. Oh yeah, St. Albans is a great spot for first timers.
You need to ease them into it.
But excuse me, I just love taking people and introducing them to this whole thing, because there's something for everyone in the paranormal. You like science, you're a nerd, cool. We got plenty of stuff for that. Let's talk about, sound waves. Let's talk about the electromagnetic spectrum. Let's talk about all this
You can
stuff,
just
right?
talk about how the tools actually are utilized and how they pick up,
Absolutely.
how they are supposed to indicate that there's paranormal
100%.
activity.
You like to tinker? There you go. Hey, build us a spirit box. Like, let's go through, let's figure out how it actually works. Let's rip it apart. You like history? I got history up the wazoo for you. You just like talking to people? I got people you can talk to all night long. You can't see them sometimes. but you
they're
can talk to them.
Sometimes it's a one-way conversation.
Sometimes it's a one-way conversation, but there's really something for everybody in the paranormal, and being able to bring that and kind of make light of it, especially for veterans, like bring them into a situation or give them an opportunity to help. That's a big thing too.
Yes.
We had a case last year, and there was a family here local to Fort Gordon, and that's where we are right now, is Fort Gordon. There was a family who had a really big issue. They had bought a plantation that had been around since the 1890s, and they were having all sorts of activity in their home, and they had all these kids. The husband was a Navy veteran, and so he kind of reached out to us, and he was like, "Hey, can you guys help us, please? My kids are scared. They don't want to stay in the house. Like, we just bought this house because they just got transferred here."
This is literally the plot of a movie, is what it sounds like.
I mean, it is though. So, they had just bought the house. They couldn't move or anything like that. So, and it was the wife's dream home. I mean, she had grown up in Louisiana. She's like, I've always wanted, an old home, and I've always wanted to, kind of dig into the history and really dive into something like this, and make it something that is loved and carried forward. And we went in there, and we had it was 3 of us, all female. Funny enough, in fact, most of us are female veterans, but all of us were veterans, all of us were female. And we went in, and one of them is an old Army nurse, and she was like making sure that the family felt comfortable, and I'm over in the back just setting stuff up and making sure that everything is like watertight as far as the equipment and stuff and angles. And then the other one was Air Force intelligence, and so she's over there doing history and research. So I mean, it just works out really well. Like, we all have these crazy specialties, and giving people an opportunity to help is kind of one of the tenets, if you will, of being a veteran in the first place. That's why you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure that also
Better
brings out I'm sure that brings out different activity as well. I mean, because, like here at the jail, when we have people who are either corrections officers or police officers, or even people who work in other types of service fields, they bring out a lot of different activities. So I'm sure with the approach that you all have, you have such a unique and different approach that it could potentially bring out a lot of different activity that just somebody that maybe doesn't have your background might not be able to necessarily bring out in a different way.
Yeah, that's typically true, except for him. This
This
guy right here.
I've been told by multiple individuals that I have a bubble around me that repels stuff. And I've seen it in action. Like there was
Every time.
we did our daughter for one of her birthdays wanted to do a paranormal investigation while we were in Texas, and so these ladies go and they start setting up, and then me and one other person, we went out and I think we got drinks, or we went to go get some stuff and then come back, and we called them and we're like, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh my God, there's so much activity, like can't wait till you guys get here. And we get there and then everything stops.
Absolutely. Every time. It doesn't fail every single time.
That's not to say so normally when I go on investigations with them, I usually do the photography, and I do like I'm the one who holds the camera and does all the videos and stuff like that. So I've managed to catch some good stuff. Like on video you can hear, like I've got a camera at the top of a set of wooden stairs, and you can hear like heavy boots coming up the stairs, and then obviously, and then you don't see anything. It's just I don't know what it is about my aura that just turns off all the paranormal activity, but I just have to be far away when you're trying to actually get
just
contact.
An absolute dead zone around for whatever reason.
It's that positive energy.
We that's why we send him to go
There you
get drinks and food. We send him to go get like nourishment. And you're like, go to Starbucks. Just go.
We paid to be here. We want something.
Right. So does that make you naturally skeptical, or?
Oh no.
No?
I have, since my teenage years, I've believed in the paranormal. I firmly believe that my niece passed away at an early age, and I firmly believe that I saw her. Like it was in the middle of the night. I heard my niece used to like to play with pocket change. And so, I unknowingly didn't do it on purpose. I just had change in my pocket and I put it on the dresser. And I, in the middle of the night, I hear this noise, and I look up, and then there she is.
Wow.
A bit of ethereal, if you will, but I saw her, and then I was like, all right, I'm going back to bed.
How old was she?
She was like 2 or 3.
Yeah. So she's like
very, very young. But since that time, and then, I'd have discussions with my father and been like, yeah, I'll hear nobody else will be in the house and I'll hear little footsteps and stuff like that. So I've believed in the paranormal for most of my adult life. It was only until meeting April that I actually got into it in a sense of actually investigating places.
Okay.
I would say that our at St. Albans might have been one of our first dates.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place to go
it
on
kind of
a
was.
date, but
well, that's a good way to know.
It really, like, invite them to an abandoned building, that's a true testament of
please protect me.
Exactly. It's either going to go really, really good or really, really wrong.
Hey, I mean, test passed.
There you go.
Yep, here we are doing a podcast together now.
Yep.
Well, I've got to say that I've spoken at several different paracons and other conventions that have ended up being near military bases. One was out in New Mexico and one was in southern Alabama. And we had a lot of active military that came in to the paracon that day. And I got to say, they had some of the best stories that they were sharing with us, as well as some of the different tables. And there's just something about, service people, they've got that credibility when they're telling these events, because some of the things that you guys have seen and experienced while in there, for someone to come in and be sharing this, that they may not believe in the paranormal, but at least they're like, let me tell you about this strange and unusual thing that happened. I have no explanation for it. And 9 times out of 10, each one of them would kind of go through this process. You could tell that they were trying to either debunk or come up with a logical explanation as to what was going on. Do you guys have any interesting stories of anything that you've experienced there in the barracks or cool places you've been?
Well, so me personally, I'm an Air Force reservist now. I went from the Guard to the active duty, and now I'm a reservist. And when I go to do my military duty, I go down to Warner Robins Air Force Base. It's about the middle of Georgia, and there's plenty of history surrounding Warner Robins, and it's a very old base, as well as the buildings are very old as well. And you just look at them and you know that they're probably around from like the 1960s. And there have been some times where I go into the lodging on base and set everything up, get ready for bed, because by the time I get there, it's usually 9 o'clock on a Friday. It's a couple-hour drive. And once particular time, I was laying there in bed, and they're queen size beds, so there's enough room for 2 people. And I'm on my side, and there's nothing else behind me. And all of a sudden, I feel the bed, like I feel the other side of the bed dip, as if somebody sat down. Then I turned my head. And I was like, all right, it's going to be one of those days. So just went back to watching my stuff on my iPad and been like, I'm going to pretend like I didn't just feel you get into my bed. That was a fun story to tell the next day. And my supervisor actually she is a firm believer in the paranormal as well. And we swap stories all the time. And I got one that she was telling me while she was at work. She was one of the last people leaving. And she got up, she went to go to the restroom, and just like instinctively, she looked to her right down a hall and saw a woman in period dress. And initially she was like, oh, that's weird. And then she thought about it and stepped back. She's like, wait a minute. There shouldn't be anybody else in here because it's a secure building, and B, there shouldn't be anybody cosplaying as Pilgrim. So she stepped back, and then like she didn't see anything, so it was like, okay, so the building we work in is haunted. That's good to know. But those are definitely two of my favorite stories.
Those are recent. Those are like in the last handful of months.
Those are recent. And I mean, wow. Langley Air Force Base. I don't know if there's a building you go into that doesn't have some activity in it. I mean, and there's some buildings you could just walk in and you just feel it. You're like, yep, this is haunted.
Yeah,
there's something here
for sure.
I mean, I know your stories from while we were in Texas. Those are fun.
Oh man, there's so many. I was sitting here like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to pick my favorite because it's like almost every spot.
I think so. My favorite stories that you've told me are the ones where you were at Fort Sam Houston at BAMC.
Yeah,
those are my favorite.
BAMC,
they're so good because so if you've never seen it on Fort Sam Houston, this is an old medical building, correct?
Beautiful.
And it's very Gothic in its architecture. You look outside the building, you can see like gargoyles and all sorts of things. Like the first time I looked at it, I was like, "This doesn't look like a military hospital to me." Why are we making these?
It's incredible, that place. So 2 stories off the bat. So Brooke Army Medical Center, the old BAMC, that's what everybody calls it, old BAMC. And I was on the 4th floor of old BAMC, and I think there's like 7 floors, I believe, including this like basement and then basement, right? Because they had the morgue because it was a hospital.
Yep.
Back in the day.
Now don't find yourself there.
Now it's Army Southern. Now it's Army Southern Command. So I am still kind of new. And I'm kind of like, and I tend to try to sometimes I'll keep the paranormal stuff close to my chest because I don't know how people will take it. So I just kind of feel people out. I'm still pretty new at this point, so I hadn't really talked a whole lot. And I had gone into the women's restroom, which I think was part of labor and delivery back in the day. And they had made it into all these offices and stuff. And I was, doing my business. I was in the handicap stall, as one does, because, sometimes you like to spread out a little bit.
You need a space.
Sometimes you like to work, Boss makes $1, I make a dime. Sorry, people that are listening to this. Anyway, so I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, this girl with like these red ringlets, and this like. She has like a headband with this like big poofy bow on. She peeks her head under the stall, like from the stall beside me, and I'm like, girl, what? Ma'am, do you need assistance? Like, excuse me. And I'm pissed. I'm like, ma'am, do you mind? So I finish up what I'm doing, and I go out of the stall, and I go to the next stall to see what the hell is going on, and there's nobody there. No one has gone out. I am by myself in this bathroom. This woman was not there. Like, I could draw her face right now. I can still see it.
So she was solid.
Yeah, like she looked like a person. And I was like, I saw her eyes. Like, I connected with her eyeballs, and I was indignant about this fact. She was just taking a peek.
Exactly. Invading your space.
Well, she was just kind of like, hey, what's going on? Like, she was quizzing me. Like, she was quizzical at me.
Are you okay? Are you having a good time?
And so I go over to my boss. Like, I walk back over to our little section, and I was like, do you know anybody with red curly hair, that like a female with red curly hair, do you know anybody that's like that? And he's like, no, I don't. What the hell are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. I was like, you haven't seen a girl with red curly hair working on this floor? And he's like, no. And I said, okay, so TMI, but I just this girl like peek underneath, her head was underneath the partition. in my stall. And so, time goes on, and I hadn't seen this girl since. Time goes on. There's always weird noises in the bathroom, though. I mean, I just attribute that to being an old place. But time goes on, and I go up to the 5th floor, and I'm talking to the guys on the 5th floor, and they're like, "Well, do you know this building is haunted?" And I was like, "Tell me everything."
I found my people.
Tell me everything. And they're like, "Oh yeah, there's all sorts of spirits here, and there's some that people like actually know." And they said there's this girl. She was here, she was a young girl, 16, 17 looking, and she has this red hair, and she was supposedly giving birth to her baby, and she died in childbirth. And I'm like, okay, okay, is there any other details? And they're like, yeah, sometimes people see her with this big bow. And I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
Creepy. Ma'am?
We need to talk about boundaries.
Right.
This building also had, of course, they had, guards everywhere. There's guards. I'm sorry, I had COVID not too long ago. I'm still trying to get rid of it, but all the gunk. Anyway, so there's guards everywhere. There's guards as soon as you walk in. And one day I walk over to the guards, and I'm like, "Hey, y'all ever heard anything weird about this building?" And
I hope you said it exactly like that.
I probably did.
Hey,
I almost definitely did.
you walk up like the Joker.
So what's funny though is that I knew this guy, one of the guards. I knew him from Langley, and he was also there.
I mean, it's a small community. We meet each other.
It's a wildly small community. So he's a guard there, and so I kind of know this guy, and he knows me, and he knows the paranormal part of me. He knows all that stuff. So this is not actually that weird of a question. So I'm sure I did ask it all weird. Hey, so I asked him, I was like, "Hey, you ever any weird stories you can tell me about this building?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Yeah, what do you want to know?" I said, "All right, tell me the scariest one. Like, I want to know something that really creeped you out." And he was like, "Okay, well, it doesn't take much, to be honest, but I'll tell you." He says, one day there was, it was really late, and there were people that were working on the 4th floor, my floor, right? There were people that were working on the 4th floor in this wide open area. It's big, kind of like operations floor that all these people sit in. And it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening. Typically people aren't there at that late. And there are people that are working late on some sort of a project. And all of a sudden they get, the security guards downstairs get this phone call from the people on the 4th floor that are like, "Hey, there's something going on in the stairwell. Can you guys go check out what's happening? Like, what's going on?"
That would be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, so it turns out the people on the 4th floor were hearing screaming, bloody murder in the stairwell. And there's like these doors you have to swipe in and swipe out. So like the stairwell is this contained space, right? So somebody's in the stairwell, they can't necessarily get out in the hall, and they thought that somebody had broken in and had just gotten into the stairwell and couldn't figure out how to get out. But they're like screaming bloody murder. And so they had called the guards, and the guards go over to the stairwell, and they open it up, and he says, "I opened the door and I heard it, and it was close, and it sounded like," he said, "it didn't even sound like a woman necessarily. It sounded like a bobcat. You know how bobcats will scream?"
Yep.
And it's just this, it sounds like somebody's being murdered. He said, "My immediate thought was, there's a bobcat in the stairwell."
Wow.
Close the door.
Right.
Yeah.
He closes the door because he doesn't get paid enough for that. Fair.
Understandably.
So he closes the door, and he's like, "Okay, well, I guess I better call the base MPs to deal with this bobcat." The screaming is continuing. Like, everybody at this point is gathered at the doors to try and see what the hell is going on.
Where's this bobcat?
And it sounds like it's going up and down the stairs. So everybody's like, "Oh my God, there's either a woman in trouble or there's a bobcat on the stairs." Base MPs come, and they go to clear everything. Nothing. Nobody. Not a thing. He's like,
did the MPs at least hear the screaming?
they didn't hear it. It stopped.
Oh, of course it
It's
did.
like they opened the door and it stopped. And so,
They probably think they're just like, are you guys
but
playing a joke on us?
all these people are like, what the fuck was that? And so now that stairwell, if you don't know any better, you'll use that stairwell, but people don't use that stairwell
No way.
anymore. Nobody,
Absolutely
the
not.
people that know
Wow.
don't use it. Mm-mm.
I can believe that. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's just
our
like-
stairwell here is the same way. I don't know what it is. We've had police officers, sheriffs dispatch different people on duty. It would be so loud, and they would think somebody had broke out, and they would do emergency head count because it would sound like there was somebody on the stairwell. And we constantly have teams talk about they'll hear people running up the stairs. We
Yep.
hear it. Yeah, screams. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing.
How tall is the stairwell in that building? In that section?
I mean, it goes up to the 7th floor. It goes all the way down to the sub basement. It goes all the way up to the 7th floor.
Is there a gap like from the top down to the bottom? Like you could fall?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I wonder if
Or there was a patient that got stuck in the stairwell and didn't get help in time, like, I mean, there's 1,000 things. We used to do all sorts of just really idiotic things in that building. Like one time,
I'm glad you admit that.
one time I
You're
like,
really stupid.
well, one time I was like, all right, we're going to go down to the morgue.
Yeah, that is dumb.
Because the elevators had broken. And so you could just put in whatever, because typically you have to like badge into floors, and you can't get to like I couldn't necessarily get to the command floor without having somebody with me that had access to the command floor. But like it had broken
Oh my
for
god.
like 2 or 3 days, and so you could just push a button and go wherever you wanted to go. And I was like, let's go to the morgue. And so I led
You
this.
are too stupid to be afraid.
I truly am. I tell people that all the time. I don't get afraid.
How did
'cause I'm
April
too
die?
stupid to
She's
be
too
afraid.
stupid. I mean, I tried to tell her,
True.
but she just wouldn't listen. Wanted to go pet the bobcat.
I read this. That's 100% something I would do too. I read this article about the Call of the Void. Are you familiar with the Call of the Void?
No.
So it's this concept where you go up to like a tall building or something like that, and you get that urge to jump.
Okay. Yes.
So that's called the Call of the Void.
Okay.
And so I read this article recently about people that go to like the Grand Canyon, and they'll just be sitting on the edge to take a picture, and then they just lose their balance while they're sitting and fall off.
Okay.
And I think it's because the either the like atmospheric pressure or something gets to them, and they get vertigo, and they just flip over down into their demise. And I read that article, and I was like, yeah, I probably need to stay away from the edge of any tall
All right,
places,
good
because I 100%
mental
would
note.
be like,
Never
what
taking
is
you
that?
to the Grand Canyon. We're never going to the Grand
100%. Don't do that.
I'm putting a
It's a bad
I'm putting
idea.
a strap on you.
It's a bad idea.
We're gonna be like ice climbers.
Yeah. There was so I had the great honor of being part of the last military unit to guard the Pentagon after September 11th.
Wow. Okay.
And I was on night shift, and the stories that I could tell you about the Pentagon at night would like just make your toes curl. Honestly,
Oh.
there was always so much, and they had just redone the section that was that the plane flew into, and whenever you went in that section in the middle of the night, not during the day, just in the middle of the night, during the day it smelled like new paint, but at night you could smell smoke, and it was so eerie. I never had anything like actually happen, but it just the feeling in that place. And now there's like a chapel that's right there where the plane entered, and there's this like plaque on because the Pentagon is arranged in rings, and so there's a plaque on the wall where the nose cone of the plane stopped within one of the rings.
Oh,
It's like the
man.
third ring or something like that. But to just go in those sections in the middle of the night by yourself, you just know you're not alone. You know you're not alone. It's really wild. I mean,
I'd be tempted to have a voice recorder on me.
there's so many crazy times
I
that
can only imagine.
Oof.
yeah.
I mean, like I've been to Ground Zero before they built the new towers in New York City.
Mhm.
Visited that area. I mean, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine what it felt like, because like you go to those kind of spots and it's just like
Yeah.
I don't even know how you explain it, but you just like, you knew, like, if I turned on an EVP recorder right now, I guarantee you something's gonna be
Yeah.
Yeah.
it just wouldn't stop.
I mean, the question is, would you
We had this
want to
discuss-
hear it? You know what I mean?
No,
Right.
not. We
Yeah,
had that discussion.
that'd be intense.
whether or
That
not
would be
to do
really
that.
intense. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know that I could emotionally take it. I don't think I would be able to do that one.
Nope,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
for
But
sure. No, I mean, so do you get a lot of stories like that from people, and do you find that they believe whenever they tell you, or is it more just, let me just tell you about this weird shit that happened?
it's kind of both, right?
Mhm.
So again, you a lot of times, whether people want to admit it or not, I mean, I get it. People want to be hard asses, whether you get it or not. You're almost always going to be thrown into a stressful situation, sometimes very dangerous, and sometimes traumatic. But when something like that happens, for generally the first instinct for us when we're talking about it or when we're telling somebody about it is to be like, let me tell you about something crazy that happened. And if they laugh it off, then cool. But if they don't laugh it off, then you actually get to go further and like talk through it. But it's kind of a mixed bag, honestly. It really is.
I know when I share because I'm very open with what my hobbies, and that we do the podcast, and that I firmly believe in the paranormal, whether that be cryptids, aliens, spirits, whatever, what have you. And I more often than not, I'll get people that show genuine interest. I mean, you obviously get
Mhm.
people like that, will more sort of brush it aside, but especially because there are some videos that I like to pull up. We had one, we were at the Beacon Theater, and clear as day, you can see a mist just right across the stage. Like, there's nothing else there. All of a sudden, white mist goes across the stage.
Yep.
Like, what we believe it was is, because that used to be a burlesque theater, I believe.
Mm.
Was it burlesque? Or
It was not burlesque.
It was an adult theater.
It was an adult theater.
Okay.
But
Not live
it
shows.
was a theater. So my thought process was seeing it run across the stage like that, maybe it was a stagehand, or something like that. But like, and that's like usually what I'll lead off with. I'll be like, all right, you want to see some paranormal stuff? Let's see some paranormal stuff. And here's this video. And then
Nice.
I will leave it to you whether you believe it's true. But more often than not, just sharing experiences, and then that usually get them to share, like, oh, I had this crazy thing happen to me. So I find, me personally, it's much more easy to open the conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that if they share something, that they're not going to be judged for it, and I'd be genuinely interested in hearing about it. I mean, because I love hearing those kinds of stories, because everybody's situations and stories are going to be unique. Like, the way that I perceive the paranormal is a very personal experience.
Absolutely.
That's why we could be in the same room, and then April gets something, and then I'm just like, I got nothing. So that's how I find it's you get the most stories, is that you go out and you interact with those individuals, and you let them know, like, hey, obviously this is a military space, and there's expectations, stuff like that. But this, you can come to me and we'll talk about weird shit all day long.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm of the fan of more the alien variety, but that's just because I want to meet one. And but
Don't say that.
You just put it out there.
No, he did. Oh no.
Yes. Universe, let's go.
Oh,
Do your
no.
job.
Now, is your reach with your team, is it worldwide or is it more regional?
Well, it honestly all depends on the day and the time. Unfortunately, so sometimes we'll have members that will be stationed in Korea or Japan, Germany. We've had members stationed. We currently have members stationed in Germany, Italy. I mean, wherever the U.S.
Wow.
military is, we typically will have some sort of a presence. Sometimes we're regional. It just depends on where people get PCS, right? Permanent change of
Mhm.
station. It depends on where people PCS to.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it
Wonderful.
varies.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast. You guys cover some of the coolest topics. And after I met you, I started following your podcast, and I love the ones that you do on Appalachia.
Oh,
And about like the root work and the granny witches and all of that. And plus, as many people that's on your show, you've got so many different perspectives, which is always interesting whenever you're listening to a podcast.
That is so. I will say some of the because I normally do a lot of the scripts for the show, and some of those are some of my favorite ones uh, to write and to record, just because like the root work one was amazing to see the history and how it developed, how it had to be hidden when it was brought over here by people that were brought over from Africa, um, doing the granny witches, or we did kitchen witchery. That was a fun one. Learning that making a simmer pot like we did today. I was like, yeah, that's kitchen witchery. I was like, oh, does that make me a witch now?
Everybody's witched.
But there's so much folklore to it, and it's so fascinating to see or to go through that history and to see the methods, and and these things obviously work for people, otherwise they wouldn't be doing them. Learning about natural plants that people could use. When we first started dating, April was like, here, eat this marshmallow plant. Like, this will help you out. I was like, what? But like and one of the things that we have tried to embrace is a lot of the different outlooks that people have. Carrie is a walking library. Like I would just give her a topic and she'll just give me a dissertation on it. Whip it out of the catalog. I mean, the different experiences that myself and April have, our resident Catholic of Stacy, which having Stacy on was something, because getting that different perspective is so interesting, especially when you start looking at like religion and culture, and like far back, so Celtic or Gallic, those types of traditions, and then you see how modern religions kind of incorporate some of those aspects, and it does raise some fun questions.
It does. We actually had a whole episode where we it was like a trivia episode, and it was between, I don't remember, I think it was me and Stacy, and it was pagan or Catholic.
Yes.
And we had to like buzz in to like they would say, like a tradition, like the Easter Bunny, and we'd have to say whether it was pagan or Catholic. So we do all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah, we do all sorts of fun stuff. We really love just learning about the world around us, and I'm an anthropologist at heart, really. And so I just love learning about other cultures and learning about religions and studying people. That's my whole thing. So that's my favorite part of the podcast. My favorite podcast episodes are the ones where something has gone terribly wrong.
That's most
that's most of them.
They usually go off the rails.
Something has gone terribly wrong, and the topic that we wanted to talk about or something like that, we just can't do it for whatever reason. I don't know if you have any of those like haunted.
I know what you're talking about.
Haunted
Yes.
topics that just you can't for the life of you, record.
Be the topic we tried 3 times, 3 separate times, 3 separate problems.
H.P. Lovecraft. Now
why did you say it?
Everything's gonna break. We end up getting off. It's because H.P. Lovecraft.
Yes, mine's missing 411 or National Park missing. And sometimes alien UFO, when I have certain people on, if we start talking about certain topics, usually like implants and such, which hopefully nothing drops right now, instantly service will drop.
Oh, now
It's wild. Yeah. But the missing 411 stuff, that every time in the beginning when I would try to have someone on to talk about it, either I would have an issue, they would have an issue. And and then when we did get online, it was like my service just died. At one point, it actually kicked me off. I couldn't get back on, and the person I was talking to was basically just sitting there and went for like 20 to 30 minutes where I couldn't log back on. And people were still staying in the chat room just talking and nothing's happening. It was the weirdest thing. But every time.
So weird.
Those topics. Yeah.
So we've got those topics too. And like my favorite thing is when we're just like, you know what, screw it. We're just going to talk about, what do you want to talk about today? You want to talk about something like,
yeah, some of our, like, personally, our favorite episodes have just come from, I mean, for lack of a better term, banter. Somebody will bring up a topic. I mean, we had one recently where it was like somebody just brought up the question, like, would you investigate the OKC bombing location? Would you investigate it? And that spirals into the ethics of
and morality behind
of paranormal investigating.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, what are sacred, like, I say sacred, but like these important locations where mass tragedies have happened. They're for lack of a better term, sacred to us. But does a future generation look at it that way? Like for us, would we go to Pearl Harbor? Would we investigate? So it's
no.
No, I wouldn't either. No. I don't want to hear those EVPs. No, thank you.
Well, I mean, is there like a statute of limitation or a time frame, like an expiration date
exactly.
of
those are some
what
of the
is
things
too current?
Yeah, that we kind of brought up, and everybody's going to have their own moral code and their own ethics by which they're going to go by when it comes to paranormal investigations. So obviously we don't speak for everybody. We can only speak for ourselves, but it would seem that it would be uncouth, we'll say, to do those kind of things. But those are like when we just get to be able to have conversations where there's not really we don't pick a topic and here's the script, let's go. When we can really just sort of pour your emotions and feeling into the discussion that you have. And those are, I think, to me, some of the my favorite episodes. That we do. Same. And it's fun to be able to cover such a wide range. I mean, that I am the resident nerd on the show. Like, I have an entire cabinet right outside that door full of Star Wars Legos and all sorts of nerdy paraphernalia. And so I that's if you hear any nerdy stuff on it usually comes from me. That's not to say there aren't nerdy aspects of the other hosts, but I think I have it in spades for the majority.
Oh yeah, he's a super nerd.
Now,
I mean, most of us in the IT community tend to lean towards the nerdy side.
I've dated a couple IT guys. I totally understand.
Yeah, it's just, honestly, it's the best case situation, because I don't mind talking about Lord of the Rings for 3 or 4 hours. I don't mind. I can do that.
Yeah.
This episode is 1 Lord of the Rings movie long.
Actually, used to use that as a unit of measurement. So we would talk about like how many Lord of the Rings movies can we get through.
Yeah.
And that was a real thing. We actually use that as measurements.
Now, how often do your episodes come out?
So lately it's been a little sporadic, but we have been getting back into it. We're trying this new thing where we record a bunch all at the same time and then release one per month. That was our previous schedule. We've kind of kept to that, but kind of not. We actually have been going a little bit longer than a month right now, so we need to get that next episode out.
Our audio engineer is busy.
We do have an audio engineer, and he is busy, very busy man. We love you, Jeff. But I think we're gonna actually come back and we're gonna start doing things a little bit more modular. We've got, it's really hard to get 5 people together. We talked about this a
Yeah.
little bit, and trying to sync up 5 schedules all at once and find some place. I was also traveling heavily, so trying to find some time where all of us can record all at the same time is pretty grueling. I think we're gonna go to we're gonna lean on that Cross Creeks
Yeah.
model, and we're going to be a little bit more modular. So from here on out, the episodes that are coming out, you might expect to see 1 or 2 of us at a time on the episode, but you'll always have a mix of the 5 of us amongst all of the shows. So I think we're going to do something kind of more like that coming up, just because it's so much easier than trying to get 5 people together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we entered like a period where it was just like a perfect storm of like she said, she was traveling a lot. I'm in the midst of my master's degree, which hopefully will be done in the coming months. So there was a lot of factors that were making it so, like, trying to meet week after week, especially with writing, trying to research and write scripts.
Yeah.
It was making everything really difficult. But I think we were like, all right, let's try this kind of model to where it's a bit less demanding of us on a regular basis. And then, we were having discussions about this like today, yes, and like in the last few days, just being like, like when there's that long of a period, you kind of lose that momentum.
right.
Yeah.
So I think we gave it a shot. I'd say we gave it a fair shake, and then found out it didn't really work for us. So we definitely plan on getting more content coming out than we have been in the past. But that doesn't mean it's going to suffer. It's going to be good stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
we've got a whole set list. We have a whole shaboopy coming out.
Just no H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, just no H.P. Lovecraft, because that is a cursed episode.
Which sucks because it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great episode, but
well, and it's quality over quantity, with that, and that is the thing. I mean, the podcast of your all set, because whenever because when I work here at the jail and I'm doing the night shift, a lot of the time I'm listening to podcasts, and so I binged several of your all shows, and it's good quality. I mean, I really enjoy the topics, really enjoy the point of views. And got to say, congratulations on crossing that 10,000 number. That is a huge feat. So congratulations.
I still feel like every single time I log into our page that I'm gonna go to it, it's gonna be like, oh, just kidding, like 1,500. Like, we gave you too many zeros. Like, it's not. I think we're coming up on 14,000. I think we're at 13,907 right
Nice.
now. So maybe
Our favorite people are the ones who can't figure out how to get us off of their page.
Oh my god! I don't know if you get that, but it happens to us all the time.
Just random messages.
Please stop posting on my page. I'm a page. I can't post to your page. That's
signed
not how
up for this.
Facebook works. So I just send them the Facebook help section every single time. I'm just like, here you go. This should help you. I don't know what to tell you.
Those are my favorite comments. It's just like, I don't think they understand how the internet works.
Yeah, stop advertising to me, and it's like, girl, I pay $5 a month for just, I don't know what, I have never run across one of my ads ever. I don't know who these people are that are getting this, but obviously you have an interest, ma'am.
Right? You fall within my demographic.
Yeah.
Now, where is the best place that people can go back and binge watch or listen to your shows?
I really enjoy the page, right? So you had the page pulled up, and that was Freqs and Geeks Podcast, I think is the
Yes.
freaksandgeekspodcast.com. And then also the Facebook page. Every single time we posted an episode, we posted the Facebook page as well. The Facebook page is actually more up to date than this one, but this one has just honestly a lot of stuff. So and whatever you like,
and any place that has podcasts, you should be able to actually find the show. I know I've been failing on posting up the most up to date ones on the website, but that is going to be remedied.
Some nerd you are.
I swear to God. I'm
I do the
busy.
same thing. It is crazy how you get behind 1 week because I've still got podcast
Yeah.
episodes on my website I've got to put up there. And it's like you get behind 1 week, it's like, oh, I'll take care of it next week. And then next thing you know, you're out of the habit of putting it on there. And like 6 weeks have
Yes.
passed. It's
Yeah. And you're like,
yeah.
dang, March? Like,
Uh-huh.
it is June.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I'm in the same boat.
totally
I
get
think we're
that.
going to transition to StreamYard, though. Like, everybody we know uses StreamYard.
I like StreamYard. It's extremely easy, and you have the option to do audio or video. If you do video like what we're doing here, when it's over, you can strip the audio from it and then send it to any of the places where you post your audio podcasts. So,
Oh, wow.
extremely easy. And then really, I like it because it's really easy for the guests too, because you get a lot of people that may not do podcasts on a regular basis, and it's like, no, you don't got to download anything, just click it and go.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm into
Yeah.
it. Like, we might need to transition, do a little restructuring. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. So we're kind of getting close to the end here. So why don't you guys go ahead and tell us the best places? We talked about the website. Tell the best places where people can find you and any cool things that you guys have coming up that you want to plug.
Sure. So we have most social media. It's just going to be Freqs and Geeks, and sometimes there'll be Freqs and Geeks April, sometimes there'll be Freqs and Geeks Chris. But if you just use FREQS, honestly, you're going to get one of us because there aren't a whole lot of us out there. Trust me, I have done my due diligence and searched the web. So Freqs and Geeks were available on any major podcast hosting interface. Apple Music, any of that stuff. Spotify, we've got a big showing on Spotify as well. So come hang out with us. We're going to try soon. We're going to try to increase our presence on YouTube, and maybe through StreamYard. Who knows?
Nice.
So we'll see. We'll see there. We do have a
Yeah.
Patreon. Don't buy it. Don't do it. Don't. Where are you? Don't. For real. It's Patreon unfortunately has let go of a significant amount of their cybersecurity staff, and so at this point we say this in our episodes, we don't recommend it. In fact, we're going to take it down here soon, but
That's good to know.
We're both in cyber fields, if
Right.
not cyber adjacent, so we are very
hyper
adept.
fixated on making sure that the people that are putting that stuff out there, the people that do have things like that are being safe, because obviously if you like us enough to want to throw a couple dollars at us, we want to make sure that you're safe and you're safeguarded. So we're looking at other options for that as well, but so don't do it. But
we appreciate your support.
We do just give us a like, tell somebody about us. That's it.
Yeah, definitely share and subscribe, because that goes a long way.
We will be vending at Pagan Fest Augusta. That is the 23rd of September 2023. That's coming up. We also have a couple of investigations coming up in the fall and the winter. There'll be more information about that soon. Hopefully we're getting up to Tennessee,
Yes.
do a little something.
Potentially we'd be in Savannah as well.
Yeah, so we're getting ready to go to Savannah as well. I mean, there's a ton of stuff. Maybe Vegas, who knows? We've been talking about all sorts of stuff for the fall, so we got some
Nice.
coming down the pike.
Nice. So now when you have those events, do you post those there on your website and Facebook page? Perfect.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Constantly
So
have like live streams and stuff like that, showing
Yeah.
where they're at and like what kind of stuff they're getting and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
very cool. So guys, definitely if you've not gone and liked and subscribed to their page, go do that. And as Nancy says, it's good for those winter down times, and when you can go in and you can catch up on that on that past content. So, and as content creators, I mean, that goes a long way to be able to, yeah. So so definitely, guys, go do that. Also, go check out our calendar and stuff that we have here at the historic Scott County Jail. We're filming for season 6 here with Ghost Biker. I looked down at the calendar one day and it's like February, and now all of a sudden we're like mid-June, and so it's like season 6 is coming out here in October, and so I've got to get on that myself. So hopefully we've got some really cool things coming up. If you're following and looking to do some Ghost Biker events this year, definitely going to be speaking at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. That's going to be coming up here on July 14th, 15th, and 16th. All the proceeds from that goes to the Wounded Warrior Fund. And I know I'm going to be speaking on that Friday. I can't remember the time. I think it's like 2 or 4 or something. I will get that posted, but that's going to be coming up there in July. Also, the Deep South Paracomic-Con, which is going to be in August, and that is in Ozark, Alabama. And then I know we've got several Ghost Biker events that's going to be coming up here in the fall as well. So definitely check out the page for those different events coming up if you want to come and join us doing that. Or just come and do a guided ghost hunt here at the jail or at Historic Rugby. So we do have your all's information there in the show notes. And would definitely love to have you guys back on, especially if you end up making it up here to Tennessee here in the near future.
Outstanding. Absolutely. And we're going to have you on our show too. That's part of the good thing about the modular stuff is we can do guests now. We don't have to just
nice
same 5 sad faces. Yeah.
Big sad faces.
Wonderful. Now, where are all of your co-hosts out of?
Okay, so we are in Georgia. Heather's in Texas. Carrie is in Richmond, Virginia. Stacy is in Newport News, Virginia.
Okay, so all represented all over. Love it.
Yep.
Love it. Well, we will definitely have you guys back on, and love to come on your show and talk a little bit more about some of the interesting things going on. And like I said, everyone just please go on, check out their page. Next week, I'm going to be having the hosts of Dark Horse Paranormal, as well as Bigfoot and the Bunny, which is going to be on here next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll be doing that to wrap up the month of June. Got some really cool things coming up here in July. We will be taking a week or so off when we're doing the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. Although we may try to, instead of having guests, we may try to go live while we're up there in Gettysburg. We'll just kind of see how things go with that. So, so until next week, we hope everyone has a wonderful week. And if we don't see you before, we'll definitely see you next Thursday night. So take care, everyone.